Let us talk about something that British people have known for centuries, but somehow the rest of the world keeps rediscovering: the humble potato. And today we are counting down 25 of the absolute best cheap potato dinners specifically designed for seniors living alone, finishing with a bonus hack at the very end that might just change the way you cook forever. We are talking meals that cost pennies, meals that stretch, meals that fill you up properly and actually taste like something worth sitting down for. So whether you are cooking for one in a small flat or a house that now feels a bit too big, this list is entirely for you. Stay until the end because that bonus is genuinely one of the cleverest things you can do with a potato, and I promise you have not heard it explained this way before. Number 25. Bubble and squeak patties. Now this is one of the most classically British things you can make, and it costs almost nothing because it is built entirely from leftovers. Take your leftover mashed potato, mix it with any cooked vegetables you have hanging around. Cabbage works brilliantly, so does peas or leftover carrots. Season it well with salt and pepper. Shape the mixture into flat, round patties using your hands and fry them in just a tiny bit of oil or butter on a medium heat for about 4 minutes each side until they go golden and crispy on the outside. The reason this works so beautifully is that the starch in the potato acts as a natural binder, holding everything together without needing egg or flour. British people have been making this dish since at least the early 1800s as a way to use up Sunday roast leftovers, and it is still one of the smartest budget meals going. 2 patties with a bit of brown sauce on the side is a genuinely satisfying dinner for one. Number 24. Jacket potato with tinned sardines. Now before you skip past this one, hear me out. A large baking potato costs very little, and a tin of sardines in tomato sauce costs not much more. Pierce your potato all over with a fork, rub a tiny bit of oil on the skin, and bake it in the oven at 200 degrees Celsius for about an hour until the skin is crispy and the inside is completely soft. Cut it open, give it a squeeze, and load it with the sardines and their sauce. The reason this combination is so good for seniors is that sardines are packed with omega-3 fatty acids, calcium, and vitamin D, all things that become increasingly important as we get older. The potato provides potassium and complex carbohydrates for sustained energy. Together they make a complete, nutritionally dense meal for what amounts to about 60 to 70 pence. Number 23. Simple potato soup with a bread roll. Chop 3 or 4 potatoes roughly. No need to peel them if they are clean. Add a diced onion, cover with water or very cheap vegetable stock, and simmer for about 20 minutes until everything is completely soft. Use the back of a wooden spoon to mash everything roughly in the pot, or blend it if you have a hand blender. Add a salt, pepper, and a tiny knob of butter. What you end up with is a thick, warming soup that costs almost nothing and serves as a proper dinner when paired with a bread roll or a slice of toast. The skin-on cooking method means you retain more nutrients, and the natural starch thickens the soup without any need for cream or flour. Number 22. Corned beef hash. This is a dish that British people of a certain generation will remember fondly, and it absolutely deserves a comeback. Dice your potatoes into small cubes and fry them in a pan with a little oil for about 10 minutes until they start to soften and go golden. Add a tin of corned beef broken up into chunks, a diced onion that you have softened separately, and season generously. Press everything down into the pan and let it cook undisturbed for 5 minutes so you get a crust on the bottom. Then break it up and press it down again. The result is a rich, deeply savory hash that is filling and genuinely delicious. Corned beef is one of the most underrated budget proteins available, and combined with potato, it delivers both iron and slow-release energy. Perfect for keeping you going through an evening. Number 21. Potato and leek gratin. Slice your potatoes very thinly and slice a leek into rings. Layer them alternately in a small baking dish, seasoning each layer with salt, pepper, and a little dried thyme. Pour over enough milk to just barely cover, add a small handful of any cheese you have on top, and bake at 180 degrees for about 45 minutes covered in foil, then remove the foil for the last 10 minutes to brown the top. Leeks are incredibly affordable, especially in autumn and winter, and they add a gentle sweetness that makes this dish taste far more expensive than it is. The milk and potato starch combine during cooking to create a naturally creamy sauce without any need to make a separate bechamel. Number 20. Pan-fried potatoes with eggs. This is the kind of meal that British people used to call tea, and it is honestly one of the most comforting dinners you can make alone. Slice cold-boiled potatoes into rounds, fry them in butter until golden on both sides, season with salt, pepper, and a pinch of paprika, then push them to the side of the pan and crack 2 eggs into the space. Cover the pan with a lid or a plate for 2 to 3 minutes until the eggs are set, but the yolks are still soft. The trick of using already cooked potatoes is the key here because they fry much faster and go crispier than raw potato, and it is a brilliant way to use up potatoes you boiled the day before. Number 19. Potato and onion frittata. Slice 2 medium potatoes thinly and cook them gently in a small oven-proof frying pan with a diced onion and a tablespoon of oil for about 12 minutes until completely tender. Beat 3 eggs, season them well, pour them over the potatoes and onion in the pan and cook on a low heat without stirring for about 5 minutes until the edges set. Then slide the pan under a hot grill for 3 to 4 minutes to set the top. Cut into wedges and eat with a simple green salad if you have one. This is a meal that keeps well in the fridge overnight and is just as good cold the next day, making it excellent value for someone cooking alone. Number 18. Loaded potato skins. Instead of throwing away the skins when you make mashed potato, save them and turn them into dinner. Rub the skins with a tiny bit of oil and bake them at 200 degrees for 15 minutes until they are crispy. Then fill them with whatever you have: a spoonful of baked beans, a little grated cheese, some leftover chili if you have it. The reason this hack works is that most of the nutrients in a potato sit just beneath the skin. So by eating the skins, you are actually getting more nutritional value than you would from the flesh alone. And you are turning what would have been food waste into a genuine meal. Number 17. Potato and carrot mash. Instead of making plain mashed potato, boil your potatoes together with an equal weight of carrots and mash them together. Add a knob of butter, a splash of milk, salt and pepper. The carrots add natural sweetness, bring in beta-carotene, which is excellent for eye health, and they stretch the portion significantly because carrots cost far less per kilogram than potatoes. British people living through rationing in the 1940s discovered this trick, and it remained a staple in many households for decades afterwards. Serve it under tinned sausages heated in their gravy for a complete dinner. Number 16. Potato and lentil dal. This might not be the most traditionally British meal on this list, but it is one that British households across the country have completely adopted, and for very good reason. Dice 3 or 4 potatoes into chunks, add them to a pot with a cup of dried red lentils, a can of chopped tomatoes, a diced onion, a teaspoon of turmeric, a teaspoon of cumin, salt, and enough water to cover everything comfortably. Simmer for about 25 minutes until the lentils have dissolved and the potatoes are tender. Red lentils cost pennies per serving, and they provide significant amounts of plant-based protein, meaning this is a properly nutritious and filling meal. The total cost for one generous serving is under 50 pence. Number 15. Cold potato salad with boiled egg. Boil 3 or 4 small potatoes until just tender. Cut them into halves and allow them to cool completely. Mix a tablespoon of mayonnaise with a squeeze of mustard and a little salt and pepper. Toss the potatoes through the dressing and add a hard-boiled egg cut into quarters on top. Finish with a pinch of paprika. This is a meal that is light enough for summer but still filling, and it requires almost no cooking equipment beyond a pot and a bowl. The cold potato trick is significant here because cooled cooked potato develops something called resistant starch, which actually feeds beneficial gut bacteria and has a lower glycemic impact than hot potato, making it gentler on blood sugar levels. Number 14. Potato wedges with homemade dip. Cut a couple of large potatoes into wedges. Toss them with a tiny bit of oil, salt, pepper, and garlic powder if you have it, and roast at 200 degrees for about 35 to 40 minutes, turning halfway through. For the dip, mix a tablespoon of mayonnaise with a squeeze of ketchup and a small splash of vinegar. This is a simple combination that British people of all ages genuinely love, and for one person, it is an almost effortlessly cheap dinner. The high oven temperature and the oil coating are what create that golden exterior while keeping the inside fluffy, and it works with any variety of potato. Number 13. Shepherd's pie-style potato top. You do not need actual lamb mince to make something in the style of a shepherd's pie. Fry a diced onion and a diced carrot until soft. Add a tin of lentils or a tin of minced beef if you want the traditional version. Pour in a splash of gravy granules dissolved in a cup of hot water, season well, and pour it all into a baking dish. Top generously with mashed potato. Rough it up with a fork to create peaks, add a tiny bit of butter or grated cheese on top, and bake at 190 degrees for 25 minutes until golden on top. The textural contrast between the creamy mash and the rich, savory filling underneath is what makes this dish so satisfying. And it is a meal that genuinely feels like a proper Sunday dinner. Number 12. Potato and sweet corn. Chowder. Dice 3 potatoes and add them to a pot with a tin of sweet corn drained, a diced onion, a vegetable stock cube dissolved in 600 milliliters of water, salt, pepper, and a splash of milk. Simmer for 20 minutes, then mash a portion of the mixture roughly to thicken the broth while leaving some chunks intact. This technique of partial mashing is the reason you do not need cream or any thickening agent because the potato starch does the job naturally. Sweet corn is cheap, cheerful, and adds a sweetness and color that makes this soup feel almost celebratory for something that costs so little. Number 11. Baked potato with cottage cheese and chive. A large jacket potato loaded with 2 or 3 tablespoons of cottage cheese and some fresh or dried chives is one of the highest protein to cost ratio meals you can make. Cottage cheese is extraordinarily cheap per gram of protein, and for seniors who need to maintain muscle mass, this combination is genuinely beneficial. Cook the potato as described earlier. Let it rest for 5 minutes after coming out of the oven, then split it and fill it generously. The protein in the cottage cheese together with the carbohydrates in the potato keeps you full for hours. Number 10. Spanish-style omelette. This is a slightly elevated version of the egg and potato idea, and British people have fully embraced it as a fridge-clearing dinner. Slice 2 potatoes very thinly and cook them slowly in olive oil or sunflower oil in a small pan for about 15 minutes on a low heat until completely soft but not browned. Drain off most of the oil, add a diced onion that you have softened, beat 4 eggs with salt and pepper, pour over the potatoes, and cook gently until set on the bottom. Flip it onto a plate and slide it back into the pan to cook the other side for 2 minutes. The low and slow potato cooking is the technique that makes this different to an ordinary omelette. It becomes almost custardy and rich rather than dry. Number 9. Potato cakes with smoked salmon trimmings. Now this sounds fancy, but it really is not expensive at all. Smoked salmon trimmings are sold in most British supermarkets for a fraction of the price of proper slices, and they taste identical. Make potato cakes by mixing cold mashed potato with a little flour, about 1 tablespoon per cup of mash, shape into small rounds, and fry in butter for 3 minutes each side. Top with the salmon trimmings and a tiny squeeze of lemon. For a special weekday dinner or a treat meal when you want something that feels indulgent without spending much, this combination is genuinely hard to beat. Number 8. Sausage and potato tray bake. Chop 3 or 4 potatoes into chunks, add a couple of sausages, half an onion cut into wedges, and any other vegetables you have. Peppers work well, so does courgette or mushrooms. Toss everything with a small drizzle of oil, season generously, and roast everything together on one tray at 200 degrees for about 40 minutes. The one tray approach means minimal washing up, which many seniors living alone find important, and the vegetables and meat cook in the same juices as the potatoes, meaning everything absorbs flavor from everything else. Budget sausages from British supermarkets work perfectly here and often cost less than £1 for a pack. Number 7. Potato soup with bacon bits, similar to the basic soup earlier but elevated significantly. Make the potato and onion soup as described in number 23, but in a separate small pan crisp up 2 or 3 rashers of streaky bacon until completely crispy, then crumble them over the top of the soup just before serving. The contrast between the silky soup and the crunchy salty bacon is what transforms this from a plain dish into something genuinely enjoyable. Streaky bacon is the cheapest cut and crisps up better than back bacon for this purpose. British people have been adding a bit of bacon to potato soup for generations, and there is a very good reason it stuck around. Number 6. Coal cannon. This is a dish that Irish and British people share, and it is one of the most comforting things you can eat on a cold evening. Boil potatoes until completely soft, mash them well with butter and a splash of warm milk. Separately, cook a small portion of shredded cabbage or kale in a little butter until just wilted. About 3 minutes, then fold it through the mash. Season generously. That is genuinely the whole recipe. The cabbage adds vitamin C and fiber to what is already a filling and warming bowl of food, and it stretches the meal so that a single portion of potatoes becomes a much bigger, more nutritious plateful. Number 5. Cottage pie with carrot mash top. Similar to number 13, but using a carrot and potato mash on top rather than plain mash, and a traditional beef mince filling using the cheapest mince available. Brown the mince with onion, add a tablespoon of tomato puree, a stock cube, some frozen peas, and enough water to make a thick gravy. Pour into a dish, top with your carrot and potato mash, and bake. The reason this is ranked higher is that it genuinely freezes beautifully in individual portions, meaning you can spend one afternoon making a large batch and have multiple dinners ready to reheat throughout the week. For a senior living alone, batch cooking efficiency is enormously important. Number 4. Panhaggity. This is a proper old Northern English dish that has been almost forgotten, but deserves a serious revival. Layer thinly sliced raw potatoes, thinly sliced onion, and grated cheese in a heavy frying pan with a small amount of butter. Season each layer. Cover the pan and cook on a very low heat for about 30 minutes until the potatoes are completely cooked through. Then uncover it, turn up the heat slightly, and let the bottom go golden and crispy before sliding it out onto a plate so the crispy side is on top. This is a deeply satisfying dish that requires only 3 main ingredients and costs almost nothing, yet it tastes rich and indulgent because the cheese melts between all the layers and the onion sweetens as it cooks slowly. Number 3. Twice baked stuffed potato. Bake a large potato as normal until completely soft. Scoop out most of the flesh into a bowl and mix it with anything you like: grated cheese, a spoonful of baked beans, some crumbled bacon, chopped spring onions, or a combination of all of these. Season well. Stuff the mixture back into the potato skin, top with more grated cheese, and bake again for 15 to 20 minutes until golden and bubbling. The twice baking creates a shell that is incredibly crispy, while the filling inside becomes molten and flavorful. This technique is so effective at making one potato into a complete satisfying meal that British people who try it for the first time often cannot believe how filling it is. Number 2. Slow cooker potato and sausage stew. If you have a small slow cooker, and many seniors find them incredibly useful for exactly this kind of cooking, this meal almost makes itself. Chop 4 potatoes into chunks, add sliced sausages, a diced onion, a tin of chopped tomatoes, a stock cube, dried herbs, salt and pepper, and enough water to cover. Set it on low for 7 to 8 hours or high for 4 to 5 hours. Come back to a pot of deeply flavored, warming stew that has required almost no effort. The slow cooking breaks down the potato until it is almost melting and allows all the flavors to develop into something that tastes like it took real skill to make. This is the kind of meal that makes living alone feel manageable and even enjoyable on a difficult day. Number 1. The perfect jacket potato with homemade baked beans. The number 1 spot goes to this because it represents everything a good budget meal should be. Affordable, nutritious, satisfying, simple, and something that British people have elevated to an art form over the decades. For the beans, fry a small onion in a tiny bit of oil. Add a tin of cannellini or haricot beans, a tin of chopped tomatoes, a squeeze of ketchup, a pinch of sugar, a splash of vinegar, salt, and paprika. Simmer for 15 minutes until thick and glossy. Meanwhile, bake your potato properly, which means at a high temperature with oil on the skin and plenty of time. What comes out is a meal that beats anything you would get from a tin of commercial baked beans, tastes completely homemade, and costs only marginally more. British people and beans on jacket potato is a cultural institution, and when you make the beans from scratch, you take that institution to another level entirely. Now for the bonus hack, and this one is genuinely clever in a way that most people overlook completely. The potato skin tea towel method for perfectly crispy roasties every time. Here is the hack. After peeling and parboiling your potatoes for 10 minutes, drain them and then do this. While they are still hot, wrap them loosely in a clean, dry tea towel and shake them vigorously for about 20 seconds. When you unwrap them, you will see that the surfaces have become completely roughed up, almost fluffy looking, with lots of tiny craggy edges. Now put them straight into a roasting tin with very hot oil, making sure the oil is properly sizzling before the potatoes go in. What you have done is dramatically increase the surface area of each potato by creating those rough edges, and those edges are what crisp up and become the golden, crunchy coating while the inside steams perfectly soft. British people who roast potatoes professionally have used versions of this technique for years, but the tea towel trick removes the need for a colander, takes less than half a minute, and creates a better result than shaking them in the pan because the fabric absorbs just enough moisture from the surface while roughing up the starch. A dry, rough, starchy surface combined with screaming hot oil is the science behind the perfect roast potato, and now you have the simplest possible method to achieve it every single time. Apply this to a batch of roasties, serve them with any one of the gravies or stews from this list, and you have a dinner that costs pennies but tastes genuinely restaurant quality. Whether you are on a tight pension trying to reduce food bills or simply cooking for one and wondering whether it is worth the effort, I hope this list has shown you that it absolutely is worth it. If you found this helpful, please do share it with someone you think might benefit and let me know in the comments which of these you are going to try first. I will see you in the next one.